Hi, this is Selective Color in Distance Learning. So what we're going to be doing is you can choose between the video for your iPad or for your computer. This video here is for your computer. So what we're going to be doing is something called a selective color effect, and you're going to want to look at the examples on Schoology as to what that is. After you look at the examples on Schoology, the next thing you're going to need to do is go and find some images that you want to change to selective color. So there's a couple ways to do this. You might have images on your computer already. Perfect. If you don't, make sure these are images that you own or have the permission to use, because we don't break copyright in this class. So don't just take a photo off of Google. So one thing I can do is I can go to my Facebook and I can click on any of these pictures of me or any of the photos that I've uploaded, and I can use that for selective color. So how to get images off of Google is off of Facebook, not Google. Off of Facebook's pretty simple because there's always a download button. So this is just me and my husband chaperoning prom. I'm trying to find where the download button is again. You guys probably already know where it is. I mean, you can right click, save image as is one way to do it. You can throw it in your photography 1 folder, rename it something nice. The other way you used to be able to do it, used to be able to just hit download photo, which I always forget when they update Facebook where that is. I can show you better. I can show you more on the iPad. But yeah. Alright, we're just going to hit save image as. That's a control click or right click on your mouse. So I'm going to put it in photo 1. I'm going to call it selective color just so I know what it's called. Another thing you could do is upload things from your phone to your Google Drive. That's what I do a lot. And then I just signed into my Google Drive on the computer. And from there, I can just find an image that I'd like to use and hit, here's the download button, download. And that's just going to pop into my downloads folder. So after I have an image that I want to use, the next thing it is going to be to download Photoshop. You already should have it downloaded. Open Photoshop. So I'm going to go over to the side and hit open because we're creating a new document. I'm going to go either into my downloads or the photo 1 folder that I saved my image into. If you don't have a photo 1 folder and you haven't set that up, go back to last week's mini assignment for Photoshop, learning Photoshop and getting started, and there's a link on how to create and set up your folders correctly. So I want that image that I downloaded into my downloads. So I'm going to grab that. There we go. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is select the part that we want to keep in color. So that means playing around with some of these selection tools. So right off the bat, I just want to show you a couple of them. The lasso tool allows you to free draw. But if you let go, it can be kind of frustrating, and you have to click this button up here to add on and to keep going. But if you're okay with just adding on like that, it's perfectly fine. Keep in mind this selection can be rough. Like my selection right now is perfectly fine. It's perfectly okay to have a rough selection because I know drawing with a mouse is hard. Alright, so that could be one way you do it. You could also play around with the polygon tool here. I'm going to hit add so that I can make little ones. I'm going to hit Command plus D on my keyboard to deselect that one. So playing around with the polygon lasso creates little vertices. So every time you click, you get a corner of a vertice. And basically you're just making a huge polygonal shape. But if you accidentally double click, it ends it. But that's why we go up here and we click the Add On To button. That way we can keep adding on. like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. So if you get a whole bunch of it that you didn't want selected, like up there in the window, that's fine. So this is still a perfect selection. Another thing that I want to show you is the object selection tool right here. So how did I get these other tools? I just pressed and hold. So I press and hold, and I get these two lasso tools. I press and hold, and I get the object selection tool. I'm going to Command D to deselect, and then I'm going to show you what happens when you drag across the object that you want selected. This might take a while because it takes a lot of computing power from your computer to figure out, okay, what is the object they're talking about? So this is kind of an AI experience. So let's figure out how long this is going to take. And look at that, almost perfect. It's got a weird bit in the ear, but that's okay. So those are 3 ways for you to try out selecting what you want to keep in color. The next step is really important. The next step is select inverse. So go all the way up to the top of your computer, go to select, and then go to inverse. You'll find that your selection has moved to the outside of your picture. I like to call them dancing ants. So the dancing ants have moved to the outside of your picture. That is perfect. So the next step is to add the black and white. So that's over here in our adjustments filter. So black and white is this half black, half white rectangle right here, kind of in the middle. And then just click. So that's turned a lot of your picture black and white, but it's also turned the ear black and white. So I'm going to show you how to fix that. In this pop-up menu, just go ahead and click the double arrow at the top right to close. And then come over here to the layers. You'll notice that the black and white layer has the shape that you wanted to keep in color in black. The parts that are black and white are actually white here. So what we can do is we can take our paintbrush that we should have experimented with in the last lesson, but if you didn't, it's time to learn. And we can actually paint in with black and white to control this filter. The thing is though, you want to make sure you're highlighted on this thumbnail image. Not this thumbnail image, but this one. Alright, so now that we're highlighted there, we're going to go ahead and jump across the screen to our brush tool. Remember, press and hold for multiple tools. I'm going to change a couple settings. I'm going to make sure up here in my options bar, oops. Uh-oh. There we go. Okay, that was weird. We're going to change here in my options bar, we're going to change the hardness to 100% so it has a nice crisp edge instead of a fuzzy one that you see here. It's going to have, or you can just click hard round. So nice hard edge. You can change the size as you need to. I'm going to go ahead and start at 50 and I'm just going to see kind of how I want to change that. The next thing here, we want to make sure our colors are set to black and white. So down here at the bottom of the tools bar, I'm going to click this black and white button here so that I get black and white. If you hit X on your keyboard, you'll find that they switch back and forth every time you hit X. So with black on top, I'm going to come back here and paint in the color of the ear. But let's say we oops and we go up here and we say, oh, that's not dramatic enough. I'm going to Command Z. Remember, Command Z is another way to undo an oops. But here I am painting in the color. But let's say for some reason, yeah, right here, there's some color underneath him. I can hit X on my keyboard again, switching it to white, and white paints in black and white. So you can kind of go around and fix this. And this is why I said you can control the size of your brush. So let's say there's a tiny little part here in the middle, and I want to make it smaller. Also, keep in mind, if you want to zoom in like I've been doing, Command plus to zoom in, and then you can use the scroll bars on the top and bottom, or you can use your mouse to move around. Command minus to zoom out, or Command 0 to fit it to the screen. So there we have it. That is one image done. So I'm going to hit File, Save As, JPEG, Documents folder, Photography 1, and make sure I put it here. So Documents, Photography 1, Format JPEG, and then up here, making sure we keep the .jpeg. I'm just going to change this to Selective Color 1. So now we're ready to do our second one. So you can save this as a Photoshop document if you want. So because I'm closing this and I haven't saved it as a Photoshop document, I can. And the reason I would ever save it as a Photoshop document is if I wanted to come back and be able to edit these layers. So I'm just going to call it SEL, just so I don't get it confused with Selective Color 1.jpg. Because I don't take, oops, it's saved, but I only take JPEGs in Schoology. Photoshop documents aren't read by Schoology and often crash it. Next, we're going to open our second one. You can use any of these tools available to you. So sometimes this object selection tool isn't going to select what you want it to very easily. So let's see if it selects me and see how that works. It was pretty close, so I could use this, or I could use the lasso or polygon lasso tool and then just edit my layer mask. So remember the steps. After we have selected, we need to go up to the top and hit Select Inverse. Then the dancing ants move outside the picture. We go to our adjustment layer and click Create a Black and White Adjustment Layer. And we close out of these Properties panel. From here, you'll notice that black has the color, white doesn't. Make sure you're on this layer if you want to edit things. And then I can get my brush tool here and start editing. So I'm going to zoom in. Using white, I'm going to kind of take some color away. Hitting X on my keyboard brings black to the top down here. And I can bring some color back. And again, I can make my brush a little bit bigger if that's a little too slow for me. But you are being graded on how much effort you put into this, how neat it looks. So I know hair is tricky, so believe me, I'm not going to judge you too harshly on hair. You can give them a little haircut if you want. But you want to make sure you're not having messy edges, that you're really taking your time with this project. So I don't want to waste too much of your time. I just want to show you that you do have to do a second one. When you are done, let's say when you're done messing with this, there's so much more of this picture that I have to fix around the edges. So this one wouldn't be done. But let's say I am done. I'd hit File, Save As. I'd save it into my Documents folder, Photography 1. This time I'd call it Selective Color 2. And make sure that the format down here still reads JPEG, because that's really important. I'd save and then submit it to Schoology. If you forgot how to submit to Schoology, see last week's lesson called Mini Lesson, Getting Started in Photoshop. It should be in last week, week 9. So after you got 2 selective colors, you've tailored around the edges, they look nice, they're images that are your own, you have permission to use them. That's all you'll need to do. You won't need to add text to this one today.